the Football Pod on Off the Ball in partnership with AIB, proud sponsors of the Football, Hurling and Camogie All-Ireland Club Championships. Hashtag the toughest.
Hello there, and you're very welcome along to episode 13 of the Football Pod with James O'Donoghue and Paddy Andrews. We've just witnessed a dramatic first weekend of championship action. I was going to say it's hard to know where to start, boys, but I think we'll go to the Gaelic Park, to New York Leitrim. New York winning on penalties the first time. Or will we go down to James O'Donoghue's Cork in Ennis? Or should we start with Roscommon putting in a perfect performance against Mayo? Paddy, you pick where you want to go first.
The provincial championships have got a lot of stick over the last couple of months with the new system, and I think everyone's in agreement it's probably not perfect, but as a first go of it, what a shot in the arm they got late, very late on Saturday night, with New York getting their first ever championship win on penalties. The city that never sleeps. Looked like some crack over there, I have to say. Would have been great, I suppose, if we got a little bit more coverage back here. I don't think anyone was really expecting that shock, but for New York, what a massive win for them, and the work that's gone on over there for the last number of years. A couple of ex-players we would have played with and against, myself and Jimmy, over the years, who are talking out for New York now. For Leitrim, it's hard to dress it up. It's a bit of a disaster to lose that game. So that kicked off the provincial championships, and then we had, I wouldn't say a major upset, but a bit of a shock in Castlebar yesterday as well. So not a bad start to the provincial championships, I have to say. Credit where it's due.
Yeah, unbelievable stuff. Like you said there that not many people were giving New York a chance. There was a lot of money put on New York in the last couple of days before that game. They were very confident over there. Johnny McGeaney, their manager, retained so much of the squad from last year. They've added a couple of other players. They convinced Shane Carty, who you've won 2 All-Irelands with in Dublin, to come down the road from Boston. Carty said they sat down in January together and they said it'd be 10 journeys up and down between then and the Leitrim game. They targeted it. They pushed Leitrim close in 2019, 2018, and then last year lost to Sligo by 4 points. Lads, it was one of those games, you know, watching it, and it's like history is sticking its paws in. You could just feel it. Like, Leitrim had enough goal chances to win 3 games. And even in the end of injury time, of extra time, they must have had 2 or 3 chances to get the ball over the bar and seal it. And then once it went to penalties, it was just, I don't know, something magic about it. Like the sunset was sort of purple, the way it was reflecting around the buildings of the Bronx that were, you know, over the floodlights of Gaelic Park. You could see the blue lights of an emergency vehicle surrounding the grounds. The stadium was packed, people roaring and screaming for New York. Like, every wide that New York kicked was, you know, screamed for a point. And yeah, that just can't be easy. That can't be easy going over there, flying over there and trying to get it done for a team that really believe they're going to turn you over.
No, it's definitely not easy going over, and there's a lot of distraction in terms of, you know, your flight excitement. Yeah, it's a lot of hacking for Leitrim, but at the same time, you have to be very careful that you're tuned in 100% for that game. And the chances are they probably weren't. You know, like they got caught. I mean, on paper, New York actually have an excellent team. The only thing that you would say is they had no preparation in terms of matches played. So that's why I would say that Leitrim were favourites. But if you actually look on paper, New York had an excellent team. And obviously the work going on in New York is unbelievable. But you would have fancied Leitrim going over there. But I'd say just with everything going on, the fact that the game got down into the melting pot, the wave of enthusiasm behind New York, and in fairness, it's an unbelievable win. For the championship, I think it's a great win. I think that everyone kind of had a soft spot for New York. Everyone kind of, you know, was hoping they'd pull something off, and they did. So, no, fair play to them. It's an unbelievable story.
Isn't that the thing? In games like that, where you're playing an underdog, the longer that game goes on, the longer you keep them in the game, the more dangerous it becomes.
Yeah, the more doubt you have and the more hope they have.
Yeah, it just gives them a little bit more belief. Like I say, the crowd get involved. Like, if Leitrim go over there and they net a couple of early goals, it just kills the whole atmosphere. Kills New York's kind of nearly belief in a way. But we've played so many games where you're playing an underdog and you're a little bit sloppy, you're not clinical enough, and it just brings the crowd into it, it increases their belief, and then you're into a dogfight. And like you say, Tommy, once it gets to that stage, it feels like it's written in the stars for New York. And you could see it, to be fair. Last year, they gave Sligo a serious game over in Gaelic Park, and Sligo pull away a bit towards the end. And then you look on paper, you're right. Like Shane Carty was part of our squad for a couple of years. Owen Cairn in Galway, he was a big part of a really good year they had under Kevin Walsh in 2018. Johnny Glynn, who's obviously won an All-Ireland at the highest level over here in a different code, albeit. But the big challenge for New York is getting a structure in place, getting a good coach in place where you can maximise the players you have at your disposal. And they seem to have done that. They've been building for the last couple of years. And you're right, they've been in the long grass. You get a sense that they were going to pull something out of the bag. But for them to finally get their first championship win, Leitrim will be kicking themselves. No two ways about it. You have chances and you don't take them. They're on the wrong side of history, but to kick off the championships, I mean, what a shot in the arm for the provincial championships. And they probably needed it, to be fair.
Yeah. And look at New York people will tell you that this has been coming. As I mentioned, an extra time win against Leitrim in 2018. In 20, I always remember listening to Willie Hegarty on Shannon's side in 2016 commentating as Roscommon bet New York by 115 to 17 points. And that Roscommon went on then to the Connacht final that year, and they lost to Galway after replaying the Connacht final. But like New York, you're saying there about getting things right underage. There are players coming. There's homegrown players coming in New York. There's a lot of money going into the game over there. There's serious passion. They're getting their managers right. We could be in trouble. We might have to split New York into the 5 boroughs at some stage, lads, when it comes to championship football. Talk to me a bit about some of the lads now that's on that squad, because I know quite a few of them. From keeping an eye on New York football over the last little while, but they've had some additions this year. Shane Carty, he obviously caught the eye, Paddy. That last point he kicked was a point that the Dubs would be proud of. They kept the ball for 2 minutes.
Yeah.
They switched to play. Gavin O'Brien won a kick out and bore down the wing. They switched to point to the attack. Owen Cairns played a left-footed pass. Haven't got full confirmation, but apparently it's the first left-footed pass that Owen Cairns ever kicked. Shane Carty gathers it and puts it over on his left. Carty revealed last night in the Sunday game he had to kick with his left throughout the game because he tore a muscle in his right foot, his right quad earlier in the week. So, did Carty have the sort of scoring power in his locker room when he's in with the Dubs, or was he?
I tell you, he's a late developer to GAA. He first grew up in the States, and then he came and played with Vincent. He was part of a very successful St. Vincent's team with Dermot Connolly, Tomas Quinn, etc. And he came into Dublin for a couple of years. And the thing, and every single lad of the Dublin team will tell you this, he is an absolute machine fitness-wise. I have never seen anyone run like this fella on a GAA pitch. The ball would be thrown in our training games, and he would just run up and down the middle of the pitch non-stop, like a marathon. He's not electric fast, sharp, but he will just run lads into the ground. And he used that score, what epitomized him. He would always get on the end of things. He would just run. And I'm talking our fitness tests with Dublin, the likes of James McCarthy, Keano Sullivan were always guys that'd be top of the pops. But Shane Carty used to win everything. He was just, the engine he had was incredible. And he worked so hard on his game, to be fair to him. Those type right foot, left foot, clipping over scores, because he knew he'd find himself in those positions because lads just literally could not keep up with him. So I seen the score, I was following it on Twitter, and it didn't surprise me that he was, so what was it, 7 minutes into injury time, he was the man to get on the end of it, because that's his greatest strength. And like I say, having someone like that, he was involved in our team probably at its peak for a couple of years. So what he would take from our group into a dressing room like New York, supplemented guys like Johnny Glynn, you could see the leadership he was showing there. And just, it seems to have, they've got a bit of structure to pull all of that stuff together. Do you know what I mean? And for New York, James, you said it, that they haven't got a lot of games, but they've obviously been building, waiting in the long grass. And when you sprinkle that little bit of stardust with the likes of guys like Shane Carty, Owen Cairn, who've played at the highest level over here for a couple of years in Ireland in the championship, it's a brilliant story. But for Shane, his fitness is incredible, lads. It is. And seeing that score, I was like, yeah, that is the perfect Shane Carty score. I'm delighted for him. Delighted. Yeah. And you obviously hear commuting up and down from Boston down to New York. He's so
that's outrageous. That's
so passionate about it. You know what I mean?
That's a 3 or 4 hour flight, is it?
Yeah. So a few quid there in New York, though, isn't it, lads?
No, 3 or 4 hour drive. I think it's maybe an hour long flight or something like that. I don't think the flight is too bad. Yeah.
But you know what? He is mad for GAA. He's mad for Gaelic football. He's seen his celebrations with Larry McCarthy, GAA president, after the game. It meant so much to the New York players, but for Shane Carty, for him to kick that score. That's his approach. Him commuting up and down from Boston to York wouldn't be anything to him. He's just mad to contribute and play. So
he ran down.
He could have run down. Yeah, lads, you're laughing, Jimmy. Do you know, like, Gavin White would be for you guys down in Kerry. So I was like, anytime there's a fitness at any stage of the season, there's one or two lads who are nailing it, and Shane Carty was like that. Savage for running.
Yeah, so look, that New York team, we kind of started getting wind of who was on the panel. There was rumours of certain players going over, and it wasn't confirmed until the Friday who they actually had.
Did you get asked, Jimmy?
What's that?
Were New York on to you to go over, no?
I had the phone on the desk and nothing.
I've been waiting for New York and Desi Farrell to ring me for the last.
I had the time off work booked and all.
My phone, bad reception, I think.
Well, we did have two Kerry fellas who played championship in 2019. Gavin O'Brien started in the league, and Rob Wharton came off the bench against Clare in the 2019 championship. James Wharton was brilliant at number 6, and Gavin O'Brien, he just came into that game as it went along, had a huge influence throughout the second half and extra time.
Well, Gavin
Can
O'Brien,
you give us an insight into the lads there?
Yeah, Gavin plays for Strand Road, or Kieran's O'Reilly's, who got to the All-Ireland semi-final, got beat by Kilmacud. So he went over straight, or he was actually commuting back at the end of that run. Serious operator. Kind of one that got away for Kerry. I think he probably would have been on the panel if he didn't go to New York this time. I think he was called in. Unbelievable hands, great leap, great engine as well. Cover serious ground. Like that, plays big moments of games, comes into games and catch an unbelievable ball or kick a great score, create a goal. Just an excellent player. Serious operator now. For New York to have him was a great one to get. And Rob Wharton, again, he was in the Kerry panel for a couple of years, wing back, very highly rated in Kerry. Could have easily been starting wing back with a bit of luck. But it didn't go his way, I suppose, at the time. But there was people crying out for him to be on the team down in Kerry. So again, a serious operator to have for New York, and to slipping in there centre back, a bit of responsibility. He'll thrive. Yeah. He was on a South Kerry team that beat us in the county final back in 2015. So I'm still sour over that. But no, it's great to see the lads doing well, because they deserve a chance in championship.
Yeah, 100%.
They have quality players.
That's absolute quality.
It's not like 20 years ago in New York where they might have one or two players and then there's such a drop off to the other 12 or 13 guys, or lads are playing and they're in New York, they're socially playing more so than anything. Like what they have now, you look through their squad, they have technically really good players who played at a high level in Ireland, and they're over there, and it's structure, organization. There's a fitness about them. Like you say, they can keep the pace with Division 3, Division 4 teams that are playing here in Ireland. So it's a brilliant story. It is. It's great to see. It's fairy tale New York. Yeah, do you like that?
Yeah.
And actually, with Gavin O'Brien, they call him Mush. But with Mush, they had the Kearns O'Reilly's club bar packed out watching the game. So it's class, like, just to have that added element to it. So everyone is.
We'll have to do a football pod, whatever about Killarney in May. We'll have to get over to the Big Apple in June, just to get boots on the ground and examine how this is going.
It's only fair. We'll have to do it.
Absolutely. We'll get Killarney locked in first, lads. We'll come back to that in a moment. Last word on New York. Like, one of the big things is, like, Jamie Boyle, their cornerback. We've seen his story before. He's a New York native. The Brosnan brothers, Mikey Brosnan, buried the winning penalty, and Johnny McGeaney said he knew he was going to score because he didn't.
What a penalty as well!
Unbelievable. Especially when you've seen so many people miss penalties, it must kind of feed into a nervousness or whatever there, you know, like, so took it exceptionally well. And his brother Shane had a great game as well. So look, there's Galway lads there, Adrian Varley and Johnny Glynn. There's the Tip lads, Owen Cairns as well from Galway. Like, it was a strong New York team. And now they go on to play Sligo. Sligo nearly got caught against them last year over in New York. This game is in Markovich Park. Yeah. The winners of that game are in the Connacht final. And the winners of that game will play in the All-Ireland series. It's been confirmed that New York can compete in the All-Ireland round robin. But if New York lose to Sligo, they will go straight into the Tailteann Cup preliminary round. So that'll be the 17 team in the Tailteann Cup. They will not play in the Tailteann Cup round robin, which I actually don't know the exact reason for that. So that was New York Leitrim on Saturday night, lads. Unbelievable entertainment. entertainment into the wee hours. Ennis had a big game on, Clare and Cork. I was sent up to Castlebar from work. I'm not sure why, but couldn't make it into that game. So I got to see Roscommon put on one of the best defensive performances I've seen in a long time to completely thwart Mayo and get over the line. I've got a bit of stick on Twitter for describing it as a smash and grab. It's probably a clunky way of putting it. It was more of a Roscommon snared Mayo into their trap and they just ripped them to shreds. That was really it. Like the kind of perfect counter-attacking game, which is really
an ambush,
good.
Tommy. It was a beautiful ambush from the Rossies.
That's sort of how you'd see it. But a lot of people always say, Roscommon were third in the league, and they would have been quietly confident going into that game as well that they were going to beat Mayo. There was a couple of things from that game that we might get into, and Cork, James, Cork. You are the official
Mayo and Roscommon, is it?
You are the official spokesperson.
We go back to Mayo Roscommon?
You are the official
I actually
spokesperson
got
for Cork football.
For some reason, I don't know what I was thinking.
I said the Cork were the team to watch. I didn't say that they were necessarily going to be any good. I said they'd be interesting to watch.
Where are you going with this? Like this, you're a weasel. Own it.
No, they've had a mare. They've had a mare. Like, because this was an absolutely colossal game for the championship to get into it. We knew what was on the line for both teams. Even a couple of months ago, you'd have said this was a huge championship match. I mean, so much on the line. To go out on a whimper, then it's so disappointing for Cork. But it's another. You couldn't say it's a wake up call. It's just another downer for them. But in fairness, Clare, like backs against the walls at home, just to dig out that result, it was an unbelievable win for them. And deserved to win. And we said that both sides are very well matched. Clare arguably maybe the better side, but I just felt like it was such a big game for Cork to finally be back and announce yourselves back in the championship. Take care of business there against Clare and you're up and running. But no, they couldn't do it. I'm very disappointed with Cork. They've had a nightmare there. But fair play to Clare. They deserve it.
We said it last week with missing Hurley. You felt was going to hurt Cork, and that's like they only scored 5 points from play. Stephen Sherlock kicks his frees, which we know we can. Clare get their matchups right. Kind of Sean Powder, Matty Taylor, who've been very effective for Cork coming from deep in any of the good performances they had in the National League. But missing Hurley, you just wondered where they're going to have the firepower to get over the line. You look at the other end of the field, Keelan Sexton for Clare kind of takes on that mantle from David Tubridy of being the kind of the go-to guy in big championship games. And it was a tight game, but Clare probably could have won it by more, realistically. But that loss for Cork of Hurley, he's their talisman. And the fact that it was in Ennis, those small margins you felt were going to count against them. But I agree, it's just for Cork, that is like they consolidate themselves in Division 2. They get some good results in the National League. You feel they can try and build a little bit of momentum, but this puts them, it's a massive loss. It puts them back nearly to square one.
It does. It feels like that, doesn't it?
It feels like it's just like the chance of maybe getting to a Munster final against Kerry and Killarney and getting back playing in big games, and that defeat just sets them back so much. But for Colin Collins and Clare, that home advantage was massive for them. They disappointed that obviously they lost a couple of tight games and lose their Division 2 status, and they're thinking, is the Tailteann Cup? Clare are kind of dripping back to where they were maybe 10 years ago or so, but that's such a massive win for them. They play Limerick in the Munster semi-final. You fancy them to get through that one, and then that puts them back into an All-Ireland series by getting to a Munster final. So there was so much riding on that game. And
there was a lot of implications for that game.
For the Division 2 teams, Division 2 and 3 teams, the provincial championships are massive because it's that route into the All-Ireland series. Mayo losing yesterday, okay, it's disappointing, but in the grand scheme of things, their season is still going to be geared towards the All-Ireland. It's not that much of an impact there, but for Cork or Clare, losing that game yesterday, it has such an impact. And Cork, they'll be absolutely good at losing that one. It was such a big game.
Yeah, there was so much on the line in that game. If Clare lost, they were banished to the Tailteann Cup for the year, if you want to put it that way. And I say that because Clare were in the last 8 last year, and they would see themselves as a team worthy of competing in the All-Ireland series. That they've got to that stage. It felt a little bit like it was the luck of the league evening itself out potentially over the weekend, because now Meath are the ones who have probably suffered the most from that defeat, because they now need to reach a Leinster final to be able to avoid playing in the Tailteann Cup. So that trapdoor is well and truly alive and well there.
But just the job, just before that time, the job that Colm Collins has done with Clare, like, is incredible. I said it last year that he was one of the managers of the season, but like he had to do an element of rebuilding at the start of this year. You know, they got to the quarterfinal, got a drubbing, had to kind of circle the wagons again. They didn't have a great league, but to come out and dig out that result just speaks so highly of the group and Colm Collins. I think he's done an unbelievable job. Couldn't speak highly enough of him as manager.
Well, the Clare Cork League game, Cork ended up hammering them in the second half, but that game was on a knife edge at half time. There was, I think, a point there in either way, and Cork just came out and they went for the jugular to blew Clare away. Paddy, you mentioned it, the matchups that Clare got right this week, and it's also something we saw in the Roscommon Mayo game. Just the tactical nuances that we saw over the weekend were so important. We had Podge Collins man marking a wing back at the weekend in Clare and Cork. He took Matty Taylor down. Sean Powter, so influential throughout the league, who drops back from 15 and even plays that link role in attack as well as sweeping. He had Pierce Lewis following him around the pitch in Cusack Park, essentially nullified him as well. So, like, when you said Clare possibly should have won by more, they missed a couple of decent chances, a couple of decent frees, but Clare scores from play. Like, Sexton scores the dummy he sold when Clare were 9-6 down and clipped the score over the bar. Another one when he had 5 Cork fellas around him in the corner. There was something about, there's a belief in that Clare team that they're never beaten.
Lads, in big championship games, having someone who can kick a little bit of magic. I know we're all forwards here, lads, and we're obviously biased because you can't win big championship games without top forwards. You look, even Roscommon, Dermot Murtagh down the stretch yesterday, kicked some massive scores, that focal point. Keelan Sexton yesterday. Cork missing Hurley, who's their kind of talismanic inside forward, someone who can just ease the pressure valve, clip 2 or 3 big points. And like you say, at Cork, they score 5 from play, not enough. Whereas Clare had Sexton as an outlet. Actually misses a couple of frees, but he kicks 4 massive points from play. In the tight championship games, having someone who can kick those spinners, it's just...
Does anyone stand out, in a championship match that you just know, right, he's on it, get it to him?
Well, the best teams have these guys. The best teams have these. And like the guys of Clifford, Conn O'Callaghan, they're at the very, very top in the biggest teams. They get a lot of the limelight. But you look through all the teams, Division 2, 3, 4, if you have a guy who can kick spinners under pressure, it just gets you out of jail. It's the easiest thing I feel for coaches to implement a defensive system, get bodies back, be hard to play against. But if you have a little bit of stardust up front, the tight games, you look at the games come down, it's 1 point, 2 point, 3 points in it. Having someone who can take the big scores under big pressure, that wins you the games. It wins you the games. And simply put, Clare had that yesterday, Cork didn't.
Yeah. Do you know what is a thing for me is that it's so important, I think, when you're developing as a player to play in a lot of different positions for the exact reason that you spoke about there, Tom, about Cork's kind of danger men being marked out of it. A lot of time, if you're playing half back or you're sweeping, you've never been marked by a man in your life. Yeah. The next thing, a fella's following you around and you're going, I don't know what to do here. And that happens in so many games. And a load of match reports are like, oh, they focused in on that fella and took him out of the game. No, all they did was put a man on him, which is the way it's supposed to be anyway. Everyone is supposed to be on a man. But everyone is dropping back, marking no one at times and breaking forward and kicking scores and seeming great. But at the end of the day, you're going to be on a man in a difficult time in a championship match. You have to be able to shake him off, get the ball and do something important with someone who's been tasked to mark you. I think
if we were half backs, Jimmy, we'd still be playing, me and you. We'd be cruising back there.
We'd be kicking 8 from play.
Sweeping. Franz Beckenbauer. No one near you.
It's a thing, like the dangerous halfbacks, they are going to be marked because it comes down to a point or two, and a lot of them are going to have to get used to it, because it's that tactical thing by managers, right? You're stopping him, even though he's not even a forward, and they're not used to it. Yeah.
We give kudos to Shane Carty for that clutch equaliser in the New York Leitrim game. O'Donoghue from Cork kicked the brilliant equaliser for Cork in the 73rd minute. There was a minute of injury time left to play, less, and Clare put together a brilliant move. Carty spoke about looking for the space. And Killian Rowan did the same thing, where he just found himself in 20, 30 yards of space in that last 30 seconds.
On the blind side, T.
How does that happen, that you can just find that space? Is it everyone's just focused on the ball? Like, he took it very well. He fisted over the bar. He kept his head.
Like the centre channel has always got to be at nearly all stages of the game. That's going to be clogged up. But you get down to injury time, 74, 75 minutes on the clock. There is panic. And the teams that can keep their composure, keep their shape, and keep their wit. If you have a cornerback, a wing back, we used to call it just ghosting up on the side. Everyone's kind of focused on the ball, or the key players are being man-marked. It's like, don't let it get to the shooter. And it can be an unsung hero creeping up the far side of the pitch, and they find themselves in space. And like so many times, this is not a new phenomenon. You see this through the history of GAA, unlikely heroes coming up with the big scores at the end of games. And for Clare, that was the case yesterday. You know, it can happen so often. Just someone having a little bit of patience and going, where is the space? Not getting dragged to the ball because everyone wants to get on the ball and make a big play. You can nearly just wait and the ball will come to you. And that's for Clare to get that win yesterday. It won't be the last time we'll see that in the championship. I'll tell you that much.
100%. But that game, as we mentioned, had implications for Meath, for Kildare, for Cork, because Clare and Limerick will meet in the Munster semi-final, and that is 2 Division 3 teams, so it means that somebody else is going to end up in the Tailteann Cup. So a huge result. So the other results, Armagh got the job done against Antrim, 20 points to 1-8. Conor Turbett starred. Shane McPartlin in his first championship game kicked 4 points. Sligo dispatched of London, 220 to 12 points. So an impressive win there from Sligo off the back of their league win last week. We mentioned New York's historic win against Leitrim on penalties. Roscommon in Connacht, 2-8 to 10 points. We're going to get into that game in a couple of minutes. Clare, as we mentioned, 14 points to 13 winners against Cork. Tipperary got over the line against Waterford. This game was 1-8 apiece with less than 10 minutes to go, and Tip scored 2 late goals to win by 3-9 to 1-11. In Leinster then, we had Wicklow beating Carlow, continuing their good form under Oisin McConville, 2-12 to 10 points. Offaly got over the line against Longford to win by a point, 1-12 to 1-11. And Laois have beaten Wexford by 2-17 to 2-13 and have earned the prize of facing Dublin in the Leinster quarterfinals. You are listening to episode 13 of the Football Pod with Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue. We're going to be back right after this talking about Mayo Roscommon and the Ulster Championship games to come next weekend. You are very welcome back to episode 13 of the Football Pod with Paddy Andrews and James O'Donoghue. Lads, we teased it last week. We have a live show coming up. We can't wait for it. We are going to Paddy Andrews' favourite destination in the entire world. Where are we going, Paddy?
The Monte Carlo of Ireland, Killarney.
Killarney, Thursday, May 4th. The Football Pod Live will be in the Great Southern Hotel. Tickets are €20. You can get them by searching for the Football Pod Live Killarney. You can get them on our social media, or if you just go on to offtheball.com/events, you'll get them there as well. It's brought to you with thanks to AIB, proud sponsors of the Senior Football Championship. Lads, we can't wait. We Keith Higgins in Castlebar last year for our first live roadshow, and then we were with Michael Meehan and Kilmacud Crokes just before the All-Ireland final. They're good crack, aren't they?
It is a good night out, I have to say. We don't even need a special guest for this one, though, T, with Jimmy. Jimmy's homecoming. I expect him to get in the king's chair into the Great Southern. The whole village will be out. There'll be 10,000 tickets sold for this.
Is that fair, James?
I'll be pelted with rotten fruit in the way, and it's
that's the thing about Killarney, though. Killarney is kind of split, isn't it? Like you're a Legion man, and then you've obviously got Crokes on the far side. Like, would you be revered in Killarney, or would you be like?
I would have thought so. Yeah. There's a statue of you on the main street there yet? No, you and Gooch. One each.
There actually should be one of Gooch, to be fair. But no, it will be great. I hope, from the other road shows, there was a lot of people from loads of counties there. I hope that we have that. I hope we have a sprinkling of kind of a bit of everything, because we can touch on a lot. But it's an unbelievable weekend in Killarney. Like, just after the bank holiday, it'll be serious crack. Great Southern, great venue as well. There'll be a nice crowd there, middle of town, so straight into town, a few points after.
lads,
Brilliant event.
it's magic. This will be good crack.
It's-
I'm looking
it's the-
forward to this. We could have been building up to a Munster final in Killarney on the Sunday if Cork had done their bit yesterday.
Yeah,
Unfortunately,
if Cork got to the final, it would have been on in Killarney.
But sure, like what we're going to have that week, lads, we're going to have the All Ireland round robin draws on the 2nd of May. We're going to have the Connacht final that weekend, the Munster final. James, you mentioned it when we were in Mayo. We had people from Westmeath coming across the country. We were in Dublin. We had Monaghan people coming down. People from all over the country were coming to the show. So that's the kind of hope, is that there's nearly like a football pod bus. We'll say we'll have to put on a bus from a couple of campus.
Killarney and May. That's a good weekend. I'd be spending a couple of extra days.
Yeah, I've heard a little rumor that Paddy Andrews has already booked around the golf or two that week, has he?
I may be on the fairways of the kingdom. I expect I will be. But no, it'll be class. Looking forward to it. The road shows are always good crack, and like right in the middle of the championship as well.
Yeah.
We will have a few special guests. We won't be just relying on Jimmy, of course. As big as you are down there, Jimmy, but we might have a couple of guests to give us a bit of insight as well.
Yeah, it'll be an exclusive live off-air event. And we put on a show, which is what we did last year, and we'll do it again this year. And I can confirm that James and Paddy in a live environment are loose.
In a good way. Way.
That's it, 100%. What did Tommy Tiernan bring in? He brought in a ban on mobile phones at his concert. We might have to, at his shows, we might have to do that at the Football Pod Live. Let's just talk about Castlebar, lads, and what we saw yesterday in the rain. I certainly started to feel edgier and edgier for Mayo as the throw into that game approached. When I heard Tommy Conroy was starting and James Carr had dropped out of the 26 alongside David McBride, Owen McLaughlin was starting instead of McBride. You're looking at first of all, you're looking at Mayo's back six, and you're like, who's going to play full back? What are the matchups going to be? They're already going deeper into their reserves. They've lost Keegan and Mullen earlier this year, missing a couple of players that have been starting this year, like Hessian and Callanan, who has 20s championship this week. And Conroy, like I said it to you after the Tyrone game, I didn't think he looked close to being right yet. And obviously he showed us a little bit in Croke Park coming off the bench. I would question whether Kevin McStay in an ideal world would have started Tommy Conroy against Roscommon, because Brian Stack absolutely shut him down. And Roscommon got their matchups perfectly right. And they really took the sting out of that game. 19 minutes in, it was 1 point apiece. What did you think watching on?
I was surprised they started Conroy, but I suppose his hand was forced.
He had to, yeah.
With James Carr. So he didn't really have an option, but it definitely did take a serious tool out of McStay's kind of armory towards the end of the game. Because if they could have brought on Conroy, he could have given him that impetus. But you could also argue the damage was done in the first half. You know, in terms of the 2 goals, so hard to come back from. But I think the main point from this is obviously unbelievable win from Roscommon. But in the greater scheme of things, it doesn't really make that much difference to Mayo for losing. It's disappointing. It's a great win for Roscommon, but they're not going to be dealt a hammer blow with this at all. If anything, they're going to go into 4 or 5 week massive training block with a kick up the arse and actually a new focus. I think in the long run, it could actually do Mayo the world of good.
That's fair, but they might end up in a group with Dublin and hypothetically Armagh.
Doesn't matter,
and
Tommy.
then you've got to play the
Doesn't
second team, the top team and the second team in your first 2 games.
It doesn't matter, because even if they come third in the group, if they have the worst performances ever in the group and they come third, which they're guaranteed to at least come third, they're still in a playoff against a second place team to get into the quarterfinal after that. So
I know we're only losing 4 teams.
Chances.
Yeah,
so many chances. And the training block is probably worth more to them.
In the grand scheme of things, it's not the end of the world for Mayo. Like I say, they've had an unbelievable spring, and I wouldn't just say on the back of yesterday. 7 days ago, we were talking about them being the informed, the best team in the country throughout the National League, and they were. Yesterday, I agree. I think the ideal scenario is you bring a Tommy Conroy and Killian O'Connor off the bench. Mayo, a couple of injuries. Obviously, James Carr is not in the 26. There's obviously been an injury there, and they go with Tommy Conroy from the start. The fact that Killian O'Connor came on quite late as well would suggest that he's probably not fully ready for a 70-minute championship game. So McStay's hand is kind of forced in that regard. And And looking back, they're not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater here. They've still done a lot of really, really positive things over the last couple of months. But yesterday, we spoke last week about the game. I had a howler with predictions, lads. I think I backed Cork, Mayo, Leitrim, and Rory McIlroy to win the golf. So Jesus Christ, it was an absolute car crash.
I was very careful that week last week not to give my predictions.
If you look at how the game panned out yesterday, and this is probably the Achilles heel for Mayo, and this I feel is the case and didn't really change from National League. When I think of all the top teams, they're probably the easiest to frustrate in terms of Roscommon's game plan and having to kind of set defence and bodies back. You feel Mayo, when the game is free flowing, they are brilliant. And they've shown that through all the National League. They were top class. But when the game is slowed down, and Roscommon were like the Atletico Madrid of GAA yesterday, it was a brilliant performance from them. A game plan from Davy Burke and Mark McHugh executed to an absolute T. Mayo struggled against that. They only scored a point from play in the first half with a massive wind. And you could see with each minute of that game going by, they were getting more and more frustrated. The crowd nearly working against them, they were getting frustrated. You could see so many times the referee was giving a lot of frees. It was a stop-start game. The expression on the Mayo players' faces, they were pissed off with how this game was going. And that is something, it's brilliant from Roscommon because they controlled the game from start to finish. The game was played on their terms. And Mayo, in situations like that, if they are going to win the All-Ireland, they can't expect every game they play to be 100 miles an hour. They need to get better. And they learn a lot from that game yesterday of playing against that, a stop-start game, playing against bodies back. I felt in the first half, and this can happen. I've played in games like this, and I'm sure you're the same, lads, where you have a wind at your back, and particularly if you're a forward, you're thinking, I just need to get shots off here. The wind is going to do the rest. And you could get, Mayo tried to score in the first half off first phase possession all the time. Pot shots, Conor Loftus, Matty Rowan, they are not high percentage shots, but because they were getting frustrated, even in the first half, it just snowballed from there. And Roscommon, they were set up brilliantly. They got their matchups right. Their game plan was from Conor Carroll all the way out, all over the pitch, play the game on their terms. Frustrate Mayo, and there's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that at all. And I would have been Roscommon's harshest critic over the years on this pod of having really good technical players, which they've always had, but being easy to play against. And Jimmy, you would have known this. You go and play Roscommon, and particularly if you're a forward in the opposing team, you're thinking, this is going to be man on man. I'm going to get a couple of shots off here. It was a nice game to play. That was not a nice game for Mayo to play yesterday. And that's credit to Davy Burke, Brian Stack, Conor Daly, David Murray, who's been around the block for so long. They outsmarted Mayo, outfought Mayo, and then they had the little bit of stardust, like we said, of Dermot Murtagh coming down the stretch as well. So for Mayo, they need to learn fast of how to play against that set defence. That's the next string in their bow if they're going to win the All-Ireland. We know they can do loads of other stuff and loads of good stuff, but for Roscommon, you've seen a side to them, which you've seen glimpses of it in the National League, tight wins against Tyrone, for example. They've got a little bit of steel about them. And yesterday was a perfect example of it, and a brilliant game plan, and executed perfectly from the Roscommon players as well. They were full value for that win.
I think the best thing about Roscommon's kind of say tactics or game plan was that they completely killed the crowd. I remember that they even said on the commentary the crowd was absolute. You could nearly hear a pin drop. It was just dead.
Mm-hmm.
And that
they were nearly, Jimmy. They were nearly. The Mayo crowd were nearly getting on top of the Mayo players because they were getting frustrated as well. They were bringing the crowd in a negative way for Mayo.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. But when you're going into an away game in a big championship match, the crowd can nearly beat you. Do you know when they're on you as an away team and they're baying for blood and they're on every kind of block and every kick, but the crowd was taken out of it, but because Roscommon were so in Mayo's faces and just kill the game early, just kill the intensity of the game in terms of getting the crowd involved. And you could also see the stark difference between league and championship. Like the way that Roscommon, even the players, you could see how much more it meant to them. Like it was just completely different ball game. They were celebrating turnovers, they were celebrating blocks, everything. They were screaming in each other's face. The intensity was just so different. You can get through league campaigns, but once the big stuff starts, it's completely different.
Well, Davy Burke said it after the game. He said the first time he met the Roscommon boys, Donny Smith sat down with him and said, Easter Sunday, we will be ready for Easter Sunday. So, like, are we just wasting our time trying to analyze the league if teams are just thinking about one thing when they're sitting down at the start of the year, you know?
No, the league plays a role in terms of players getting into form, particularly for new coaches, seeing styles of play. Are they trying to do anything differently? What are they doing? Their kickouts, their opposition kickouts, things like that. You're never going to see someone's full hand in the National League. You look, for example, Kerry. We said it from day one this year. Kerry were going to be pretty average during the National League campaign. That is not going to be the case come Championship. You don't get carried away with what you see in the league, but there's definitely things you can take from it. And from Roscommon, day one, they beat Tyrone and the Hyde. The Tyrone were kind of struggling in the National League, and we'll see a bounce from them in the Championship as well. But there was something different what you're seeing from Davy Burke and Roscommon, that their structure in defence was a lot better. They were harder to play against. And that, for me, we had this conversation about Galway 2 years ago on the pod, saying that very similar to Roscommon, loads of technically really, really good players, but my experience of playing against Galway and against Roscommon, they were soft touch. When you played them in the Championship, you're not overly concerned. Pádraig Joyce, Cian O'Neill, John Divley, they've changed that in Galway over the last 18 months to 2 years. And Davy Burke, Mark McHugh and his management team, that's the big change for me that I see in Roscommon from 2 or 3 years ago. They're consolidated Division 1 status, but they're winning tight games. Like James has said it, they're nasty. Nasty yesterday, in a good way. What you need. I thought, I think I tweeted this yesterday, Dermot Murtaugh's score in the 66th minute was
left.
It was the whole
turnover.
game.
Yeah.
It was the whole game. It was Mayo struggling against the set defence. It was Roscommon. The ball must have been turned over about 10 times in the one play, but it was just disciplined tackling. It was Roscommon smart, in Mayo's face, physical, turning the ball over, breaking. Dermot Murtaugh's the only player up the pitch, but he has the quality. Like, Roscommon only scored their first point from play in the 61st minute. So as good as they are, they're set. They have that edge about them. They frustrate Mayo. They do get a little bit of luck, which you do need in games like that in terms of the timing of their goals. They get, Conor Loftus' foul on David Murray for the penalty. Comes at a brilliant time for Roscommon. Enda Smith puts it away. Donny Smith gets a rebound for his goal. But to take advantage of that luck, you need to have all the bases set to take advantage of that. And Roscommon had that with their solidity in defence, their composure on the ball, and particularly, I had my heart in my mouth a few times in that first half with Conor Carroll coming out with the ball, and they were hand passing the ball around, controlling the pace, and that's dangerous against Mayo of all teams, because Mayo have such a strong press, but Roscommon stick to their guns and they back themselves to do it. And in terms of a game plan, what they would have spoke about, like I say, not just last week, but clearly in the months leading up to this game against Mayo, they would have had this set, and it went to an absolute T yesterday. And that's a credit to the players for the discipline to implement that game plan, and then having the quality at the end to put the finishing touches.
Can we sit on that discipline for a second? Because that was something that was so evident watching it. Roscommon, how they slowed that game down, how patient they were. It was on another level. Like, I've watched a lot of these Roscommon lads, would have played with some of them DCU and would know a lot of them quite well. I've watched them over here. There is a nastiness with some of them that has always been there, but it's been brought together now. Like Donny Smith yesterday, he finished his goal brilliantly. Donny Smith worked like a savage around that pitch, put in so many tackles. Then he came off and Connor Cox came in. And when you mentioned that Murtagh point, it's Cox who's breaking out the defense of that ball and, winning a free and putting it on his way.
Ben O'Carroll yesterday.
Ben O'Carroll was brilliant.
A young guy, he's a shooter, he's a scorer, but it wasn't that type of game.
No.
Yes, particularly with the conditions. And he's working like a savage.
Yeah.
Dermot Murtagh gets, like I say, it takes him nearly to the last 10 minutes. He starts clipping the beautiful scores, but the work rate outside of that. And that was, again, that's not something from my experience of playing Roscommon for years that you necessarily would have got.
Okay.
But you could see it yesterday.
Just the last thing on the Mayo press, right? Because they did have their press on at times, and it was they didn't take their scores, but they did cause trouble for Roscommon at times.
They are very good.
Back when the 2V faced Mayo when they're at their best, and they put this press on you. If you went long, you were going long to Shamey O'Shea, Aidan O'Shea, Barry Moran, massive men in midfield. Yesterday, Enda Smith and Keith Doyle won the midfield battle. They won the midfield battle. And that, I think, could be an issue for Mayo down the line. If they're putting this pressure on teams, the keepers with the big kick out are going to be able to go over them. Because to me, Matty Rowan is struggling in the air. We saw it in the 2021 All-Ireland final against Kilpatrick and Kennedy. I'm not sure if Jordan Flynn is offering him anything in the air. I don't know if Diarmuid O'Connor's main strengths are in the air. So Mayo with this full press are leaving themselves open to a bit of danger here.
I think you could have said throughout the league that Mayo had the best midfield in the country, but they probably weren't tested aerially, as you said. Like Diarmuid O'Connor and Ruan both are having fantastic years, but it does come down to one or two big moments in the air that can completely change a game. But if you notice the press in the first half, I don't think that Mayo pressed Roscommon enough in the first half. When Roscommon were kicking into the wind, I think the Mayo left them off the hook a little bit.
From play, Jimmy, I agree. I thought they went big on Conor Carroll's kickouts. They pushed
at times, they left him off the hook a couple of times as well.
They were dropping off, and you're thinking, I agree with that. I agree with that.
Whereas they could have pinned them, because again, with the strong win like that, you can rack up 3 or 4 scores in a row quickly, and it gets you out of dodge. Because obviously they were trying to, as you said, score from every first phase attack. Whereas if you kind of win the kick out, you're 6-on-6 nearly. So they could have got some easy scores like that. And as well, did you notice that Mayo had 2 open goals in the game that they turned down?
10 minutes.
They turned them down. Yeah, but
Diarmuid O'Connor had an open goal, and was it Flynn had a side of an open goal? Yeah,
Diarmuid O'Connor's one. If he turned on to his left, he could have stroked that in, because Conor Carroll had no interest in getting back into the goal. He was sauntering back. If Diarmuid O'Connor just opened up his left, he could have side-footed in. I think that was the one where he went to Aidan Shea and he got bottled up and it went up the other side.
That was in the first half. And was the second one as obvious? Was it?
It was as obvious because it was with the wind.
Okay, I couldn't see it on the
in the second half. In the second half, I think it was Aidan Shea had it as well, and they could have. I think they just pulled the trigger. They could have had 2 handy goals.
But on it, right? And we spoke with this with the Leitrim New York game. Mayo have 2 gilt-edged goals chances in the first 2 or 3 minutes.
Coyne.
Yeah.
Cohen.
Well, Cohen was a brilliant effort, but Ryan O'Donoghue, when they turn over, misplaced kick pass, and Mayo are in. That's in the first 3 minutes.
Yeah.
With the wind. Slip it to Tommy Conroy, and that's a goal. And that changes everything.
Yeah.
Everything. It does. And this is what I'm saying. Like Roscommon, they were underdogs going into that game. I'm not saying it was like a shot to nothing, but Mayo were favourites for that game. And Mayo got off to a start like that. Like Aidan Shea with Conor Daly, a brilliant flick on to Stephen Cohen, like literally a minute later. And Stephen Cohen, if that goes in off the crossbar, Tony Uboa stuff, what a goal it would have been. They're 2 massive chances. And if Mayo convert one of them, it completely changes the complexion of the game. And this is what I'm saying for an underdog, whether Roscommon like it or not, they were going into that game. But if Mayo score those 2 goals, the game plan, it just creates doubt. It just puts serious reservations into your game plan, confidence of the players. Mayo missed those chances, and it just gives Roscommon more and more confidence. And then it develops into a dogfight. And that's what I'm saying. With every miss Mayo had, and that lack of patience up front in the first half, where they're forcing snapshots, it's a negative for Mayo, but it just gives Roscommon another boost. And then when the goals come at perfect times. And that's what I mean, that little bit of luck that comes with having a brilliant setup, everyone knowing their roles, and having that little bit of quality which Roscommon have. That's why I say it was like a perfect ambush. And that's not a negative thing with Roscommon. It was a brilliant performance. But that's the margins where Mayo just a little bit more clinical in that first half, and they weren't, and they've paid the price for it. And that's going to be the case with these top games between the top teams throughout the championship. If you're off a little bit, which Mayo were, it's so difficult to win them. So difficult to win games when you're like that.
Yeah, I think your point though about the jeopardy is fair as well, that they do now have 5 weeks, and that may just suit them a little bit better. It is quite a long time though to go without a game, though, isn't it?
I think Mayo would have liked to play Galway in a couple of weeks' time.
Really?
Okay. In a Connacht final. But they need to work on these things. I say that style of play, and Galway will present that challenge to them of playing against that set defence. Like I hear all it, like training's great and all. We all say games bring you on. That's where you learn most. Like Mayo can work on their fitness for the next 5 weeks. Fitness is not an issue for Mayo. It's not. That's not going to be a problem. They're not going to win the All-Ireland because the team outruns them or outworks them. It's the nuance, particularly in attack, of creating those scores. Like Aidan O'Shea had a brilliant National League campaign. That style of game didn't suit him yesterday. He didn't have as big an impact because of Roscommon's setup and how Brian Stack sits in front of him, Conor Daly marking from behind. They limit his influence. Mayo need to figure out that. How do we still get the best out of him? And that's games do that. Do you know what I mean?
So you'd be more worried the most of this defeat.
Oh, I'm not writing Mayo off. Like I said, they've had a brilliant campaign to date, and they are still one of the All-Ireland contenders. But there are areas in their game, like all the top teams, that they need to sharpen up on. And yesterday, that's not a new thing. Mayo struggling against that type of defence.
Yeah.
Struggling to get shots off. Just that little bit of nuance and attack to break teams down. I don't think that's ever been a big strength. We know they can do all the other stuff, but I still think Kevin McStay and the Mayo players, what they've done over the last 4 months has been massively positive. But yesterday was a wake-up call for them. And I think they'd rather have games to work on it than 5-6 weeks of just training.
I agree. I think they definitely would rather the games, but it's not the end of the world for them.
Yeah.
I think the Roscommon wanted that result more. It felt like that watching it. It felt Roscommon were willing to kill for it, whereas Mayo just didn't look like that for some reason. I just didn't think they had that intensity level. But if you're a Mayo player now, you've gotten your wake up call. McStay will bring him in. They probably will work hard physically. And I know that they're not unfit, but that could be a string to their bow later on in the year where they could have extra running power. They'll have to spin it positively, obviously, for the group. But I don't know how you structure a 5-week gap in the middle of your championship campaign. They've probably never done it before. But when I was watching that game last night, I was like, this is not the end of the world at all for Mayo. There's not that much on the line because they have so many chances in that group. The way the championship structure is, it wasn't do or die for Mayo at the last day, I don't think.
Yeah, I think that's.
Rossi's go on to Galway. I think that's a very interesting game now.
It's in the Hyde. They've actually beaten Galway the last 2 times they've met in Salt Hill, I believe. So.
But they'll take massive
Or 2 of the
confidence
last 3.
Like to go to Castlebar and to beat, like I say, the form team in the country over the last couple of months. The belief they get from that, like the credibility that it gives Davy Burke as well when he's going in with messages, throws players go. Like there's huge belief that comes with that now. This is the game plan. We're going to set this up and we're going to take out Mayo, and they go and they do it. It's just the atmosphere in Roscommon. And I have to say, like you said, their harshest critic at times, but there was a side to Roscommon we seen yesterday, which is a massive, massive plus for them going into the rest of this championship campaign. We've always said they had the technical quality, but their setup, their attitude to that game, they were in Mayo's faces. Poor old Aidan O'Shea, they were all over him, and that's a brilliant thing for if you're a Roscommon supporter to see, and the fact that they've Galway in the Hyde as well. Yeah. Very interesting matchup.
That's going to be a brilliant game on the 23rd. And that is going to be an insane weekend of football. There's a lot of matches. We're going to just turn our eyes to next weekend in a moment.
Before we go, Tommy, just one thing, and he's always meant Enda Smith yesterday.
Oh yeah,
outstanding.
Like the type of game, it wasn't just football, which you know is technical quality that he has. What leadership, the work rate, like say dominating around the middle of the pitch. Conor Carroll's long kickouts. He caught an unbelievable ball in the second half over Matty, or I think it was Matty Rowan. It was a bullet, and he catches it. It was just everything he did in the game, the leadership, and he gets through at the end to fist over the point. We know he has the technical stuff, but I thought his performance, his character he showed yesterday for Roscommon was exceptional. A brilliant, brilliant performance.
He is a match winner, right? And we've spoken about how Clare shut down Cork's He-Men, how Roscommon shut down O'Shea, O'Donoghue, Stack tied down Tommy Conroy. Why didn't Mayo shut down Enda Smith? Because if you shut down Enda Smith, you're shutting down the heartbeat of that Roscommon team.
But Tommy, it wasn't like a Paddy Durkin pick him up and he's kind of waiting up front and forward. He was impacting the game. And Michael Megan mentioned this last year. Top players, usually younger players, games can pass them by because their game is just based on the really nice stuff. When the ball comes to me, I'm going to kick 10 points from play. And that's brilliant if that can happen. But Enda Smith impacted the game in the unsexy stuff, which I hated doing. Jimmy, I'm sure you hate it. Forwards don't naturally like doing it, but it's so crucial in big, and it's the difference between league and championship games. He was impacted. He was getting tackles. He was getting turnovers. It wasn't like he scored 5 or 6 points from play, and it's an easy thing to shut down. He was outworking the Mayo middle third. And that's a hard thing to shut down. That's just fight and edge. And then your class shines through at the end. Like, I think Dermot Murray was a perfect example of it, that he works his balls off for 60 minutes, kicks a couple of frees, but he's not getting the highlight reel stuff until the last 10. Stephen Cohen's doing a good job on him. And you have to fight your way through a battle to show your quality at the end. You have to earn the right to show your technical skills. And Enda Smith was the epitome of that yesterday for Roscommon. I thought it was brilliant.
Yeah, well said. Okay, so in the Munster Championship, we will be watching Limerick take on Clare and Tipperary take on Kerry in the semi-finals. In Connacht, we will have Sligo up against New York and Roscommon hosting Galway. In Leinster, we now know our quarter-final matchups. We've got Kildare against Wicklow, and they will play the winners of Dublin and Laois in the Leinster semi-final. And on the other side, we have Meath taking on Offaly and Tullamore, and Louth play Westmeath, and they're on the same side. Those games are all on the 22nd and 23rd. Next weekend,
games there too, isn't there? Like,
there's some cracking matchups there.
McConville and Wicklow will, at the start of the season, they're saying Kildare are going to win that. The way the season's gone to date, that's an interesting one. Same
Sure.
Offaly and Meath.
Yeah.
The alarm bells are ringing. Tell me, we're trying to be real positive about Meath, but
well, I don't know. Has that not stopped since week 2? That positivity.
Tullamore is tricky, and then Westmeath and Laois, or Westmeath and Louth.
Yes.
Fascinating game, that one. Very, very good game.
Yeah, there are going to be some cracking games that weekend in Leinster for sure. In Ulster, we've got Armagh up against Cavan. Armagh bet Antrim at the weekend in their preliminary quarter-final. We have Down against Donegal, which will come back to in a couple of weeks. But this weekend, Fermanagh hosts Derry. The spread is 7 points at the minute. Ooh. And Tyrone are home to Monaghan, where the spread is 2 points. Let's just start on Tyrone and Monaghan here. James, we've got 6th in Division 1 against 4th in Division 1. Monaghan pull off the Houdini Act against the weakened Mayo team on the last day once more. We know they stayed up in Division 1. Probably all had them marked to go down with Donegal at the start of the year, and we were looking at it on paper. How do you see this going against Tyrone?
I think it'll be a war of attrition. It depends. It depends on McManus really for Monaghan. If he can have an absolute stormer, then they may be able to score enough. But if he doesn't, I think that the Tyrone just have too many scores all over the field. I think that they should be able to kick on. They found a bit of form towards the end of the league. They flattered to deceive at times, but with the likes of Dara Canavan and Rory Canavan coming on late in games, they've found something just attacking wise that they seem to be able to put up the higher scores at the moment. And I know that Monaghan had that great last day survival. They kicked outrageous scores that day, but I don't see them creating enough to be able to worry Tyrone. That's my take on it at the moment. That's not to say that the Tyrone are the finished article. I think that there's huge scope to improve for Tyrone. But up front, I think there's more scores on the board for them. And I'm actually looking forward to that game. It'll be a bit like the Roscommon Mayo game in terms of
similar.
They won't be able to play free flowing football and kick points quickly. It'll be over and back. It'll be patient. And I think the Tyrone have a huge experience of that, and they have the kickers on the field to be able to do the job, I think.
Yeah, I think it'll be one for the purists, Jimmy. I agree with you.
Yeah.
Like I watched them play in the National League in Clones. Monaghan obviously had a couple of sendings off that day, but I thought Tyrone were a far better team. And Tyrone's renaissance towards the end of the league, I think they'll take massive positivity from that. You look at the way, like if Monaghan are going to win this game, you expect McManus probably has to be in from the start. I think they would probably be.
They'll start them, yeah, definitely.
Pádraig Campsey would probably pick him up. Michael McKiernan would probably pick up Jack McCarran. They're big matchups. I think Tyrone got that spot on in Clonus in the league game a couple of weeks back. Like, championship will be a different animal. The fact that it's in Oma, I think, is a big plus, obviously, for Tyrone. As positive as Monaghan's, like I said, the Houdini act again of the final day and staying in Division 1, I think what we've seen throughout the league campaign to date and the burst Tyrone have got over the last month or so, I expect Tyrone to win this one. Like, my predictions are worth absolute shit, as you know, but I just think Tyrone, I've seen major pluses over the last month from them, from I'd say their ground zero against Mayo and Castlebar in the league game, where it was just an unrecognisable Tyrone team from anything myself or Jimmy would have played against. They've got that edge back, their organisation back, and their big players are starting to come into form, with probably the exception of McShane, who just seems to, he's just struggling for form since his return from injury. But the likes of Matty Donnelly, who was brilliant against Kerry in that victory in Oma, Hampsey, McKiernan, they've got the edge back in their matchups. Darren McCurry and Derek Canavan. I think the quality Tyrone have,
so much quality there. Like,
yeah, the quality they have,
quality. It has to come out.
You get when you back that up with their edge, their organisation in defence. I expect them to win this game. I don't think Monaghan will have enough. Now, we've written off Monaghan so many times, but I just think that's a big ask. As positive a victory it was in Castlebar, it was against the second string Mayo team, and I think from over the course of what we've seen in the National League and with the matchups Tyrone have, I think it'd be a big ask for Tyrone, or for Monaghan, to go to Oma and win that game on Sunday.
Yeah, I think it's set up for Tyrone to win Ulster. I think they have a great chance of winning Ulster from their side of the draw. But I think the Matty Donnelly is so important to that team. He's the heartbeat. When he came back in, when he came back into that team, even I remember we spoke about that interview he did with Hampsey, where you could just tell it was like he said, "Lads, what's going on here? Like, we're Tyrone. This is what we should be doing." And he just grabbed it by the scruff of the neck and dragged him back to
But they all did, Jimmy, didn't they? It was like across the pitch, it was a different atmosphere.
It was, but he seemed to be the starter of it, or he just seemed to be the one that said, "Come on, lads, let's get this going." Because we said that they must have had so many crisis meetings over the last couple of months.
That was crisis meeting 136.
Yeah. He seems to have been the voice.
Finally kicked in.
Yeah. Like in McCurry, and McCurry hasn't had a great year yet either. He's going to be
been all right, though, Jimmy, hasn't he? Like,
he's been okay, but he's going to be hungry to kick on. Living off scraps, absolutely, yeah, absolutely. And they haven't had their forward structure down to a T yet. They moved Myler back into half back. He's probably more comfortable there. But I just think the quality they have and the kickers they have on the field, they could be very dangerous come the end of the year.
They've serious quality, and I don't think that was ever in doubt. It was from winning the All-Ireland all of last season and the early part of this season. It was just an attitude from Tyrone that was just way off, unrecognisable, easy to play against. The goals Mayo score in Castlebar, it was like part of the Red Sea. Just not anything you'd associate with Tyrone or any successful Tyrone team over the last couple of decades. And you're right, that interview struck me as well when they bet Kerry up in Oma. And it wasn't Kerry at their best either, but Hampsey and Matty Donnelly, like the heartbeat of that team over the last decade. And all they were talking about was attitude, pride back in the jersey, like old school stuff. Yeah. But if you don't have that, all the technical quality that Tyrone have is irrelevant. Whereas that's the biggest change I've seen from them in the last month. And it won't take much. This game will be fire and brimstone and all, Monaghan and Tyrone. Well, you expect to see that. But I think they have greater quality than what Monaghan have, and that's why I expect them to win this game.
We've seen it with some of these games before. Like, Monaghan essentially have a shot to nothing here against Tyrone.
In what regard?
They're guaranteed to play in the All-Ireland round robin series.
Okay, yeah.
They have nothing to lose, and they've survived. They've probably had a couple of good weeks there where they've been good moods in the camp. There's a young management team there. The players know each other so well. We mentioned how it was the perfect ambush from Roscommon and Mayo. Are we seeing that this weekend? Could that happen this weekend once more? Like, Tyrone have been flaky, lads, since they won that All-Ireland. I would say flaky.
This will be a tight game. Just the nature of the way these two teams play, it will be a cagey affair. And oversimplify this, it could possibly come down to McCarron and McManus win their individual battles. And like they're so experienced. McManus has played against blanket defenses for his entire career and has been able to find spaces. Like you're Mayo struggling against that yesterday, where they need that kind of open space and one-on-ones. McManus has been an absolute master for a decade of playing against these defenses. And he's such a sharp shooter. If him and McCarron can win those battles and find those spaces, of course Monaghan have a chance. Of course. And it wouldn't be as big a shock, I would say, as Roscommon beat Mayo as if Monaghan go to Omagh and win, because Tyrone have had that flaky streak in them. But over the last month, that's what I'm saying. The form guide, Tyrone seem to have turned the corner and the pennies dropped with them. And that for me makes them favourites. But Conor McManus, could he rewrite the script again? More magic from him. Of course, he has the technical ability to do that. He's a genius.
Yeah.
I can see Tyrone putting so many bodies back in front of McCarron and McManus that he won't be able to see the ball or the goal.
But he's always dealt with that, Jimmy, hasn't he? To be fair to him.
He has, but look, he's coming to the stage of his career where he's not as sharp. You know, he's not going to be able to get that half a yard that he used to be able to get.
There's me and you, Jimmy, who are younger than him, like.
What age is McManus? Is he 30? Is he 35?
Definitely 35. Yeah, definitely 35. He played county football in 2007. I'm sure
wing back. He played wing back, marking Donegal Walsh in Croke Park.
Not his game.
But I think that you're dead right. If McManus and McCarron play to their capabilities, 100% Monaghan can win that game. 100%. But I also think that Tyrone know that. And they're going to say, we're going to shut these fellas down by hook or by crook, if it means putting 10 fellas in front of them. And that's where you need your scores from elsewhere in the field. Like Mayo struggled against Roscommon. They didn't have the patience to be able to dig out a score after a bit of over and back. I wonder, do Monaghan have that elsewhere in the field? That's where I'm doubtful. Okay. But they definitely have a great chance. But I think the Tyrone are going to be ready for them.
The way that Ulster's set up, Tyrone, Monaghan and Derry, Fermanagh are on the same side of the draw. So that's two promoted teams. Fermanagh going up alongside Cavan in Division 3 and Derry going up alongside Dublin in Division 2. They both lost their league finals last weekend. We saw Cavan do an exceptional job on Fermanagh's Dangermen. Ultan Kelm, who had an unbelievable league, was marshalled by Porrick Faulkner quite well in that league final. Do Derry just have enough quality defenders to shut down the Fermanagh threats this weekend? Is that what we were expecting?
I think Derry will win. I do. We spoke about Derry's. I think Derry's challenges are going to be up front, and that's at the business end of the championship. I think this game against Fermanagh, like Fermanagh have kind of come out of nowhere, seeing promotion, a brilliant season for them so far, and they've had some big wins, and they do have some guys who can kick scores. Obviously, Quigley gets a lot of the limelight, but I think Derry in this type of game, this is like the perfect game for Derry. It plays to their strengths. I still think they're an excellent team. Like we said, in terms of winning the All-Ireland, I felt worried for them after the league finals and in comparison to the other top teams. But in terms of playing Fermanagh and how they'll be set up, I don't think it's going to be easy, but I think Derry will have enough to win this game. But their eyes are on bigger prizes as a group. They'll be looking, can we retain the Ulster title? Can we make a real dent in the All-Ireland series? And I think that's where they'll come up short. But for this game, I think they'll have enough to beat Fermanagh.
I'd love to see what they're doing in Derry since the defeat in the league final, because it's obvious that they don't have enough at the moment to challenge the very top teams. But will they bring something different to the championship over the last? Will they have thought of something new or practiced something new over the last couple of weeks? I don't think they will. I think they'll do the same. I think they'll do the same thing, the slow build up, pick off their scores, and they'll have no problem in Ulster. Well, in the early rounds of Ulster. But come the faster football, when it's open spaces, I just don't think they're going to have enough.
I don't think that's the challenge they're going to face this weekend against Fermanagh.
It's not, but
that's what I mean. I think
you have the argument then. Do you take every game on its merits and play that game? Or do you try and build something progressively going forward?
But isn't the time to do that, Jimmy? I would say in the National League to try those things, and we didn't see that. Do you know what I mean?
I think that
for them to start trying it now and the championship would be a surprise. I don't expect to see Derry like 40, 50-yard kick passes into a full forward line over the next month in the Ulster Championship. I don't see that happening. I think if we were going to get an inclination of that, we would have seen it in a couple of the games. And bear in mind, they were pretty much qualified and promoted with 2 games to go anyway. So,
but you think that they would have had a meeting after the league final and they said, right, lads, we're flying it, but we're not there. Are we going to keep doing the same thing over and over and over again? They're not going to reach that.
They would have had those meetings after the Galway All-Ireland semi-final. Like it was so clear why they lose to Galway that's last July. We lose an All-Ireland semi-final because we're just not sharp enough. We're not posing enough threat in an attacking sense. They would have had those conversations last August, September, October, November, December. Like their defeat to Dublin, as blunt as it was a couple of weeks ago in Croke Park, it wasn't like that's the first time they've lost a game like that. You know, there was nothing new in losing to Dublin in the league final than there was against Galway in the All-Ireland semi-final. So I wouldn't say it was they're driving on the bus back up to Derry from Croke Park going, Jesus, we need to be a bit sharper in attack here. I highly, highly doubt that would have been, a light bulb moment for Rory Gallagher and his coaching team. Absolutely not.
But I mean, they're gonna probably win the game the weekend. They could win it. You said the spread is 7 points. If they win it by 7 or 8 points, suddenly they're the best in the world again. They're high as a kite, but they're going to walk into the same problems. That's the thing.
Yeah,
they're going to walk straight into the same thing in the summer.
I agree with you.
I'd love to see them do something different. Risk a little bit against Fermanagh the weekend. Try something. I agree. I probably don't think they will, but I think that Dublin League final was a real confirmation that they're short of something.
Yeah. Second half was a bad. Now, obviously, they were missing McKagan and they lose Glass, but I just thought the structure, that game could have went on for another 2 hours. They weren't going to outscore Dublin. Do you know what I mean? No. It was a poor quality game as well. But I don't expect to see what I expect to see from Derry against Fermanagh the weekend. Savage work rate, really hard to break down, and they clip a couple of scores and keep Fermanagh at arm's length. I don't think we're going to see. I don't expect to be sitting there after that match going, whew, Derry are doing something else here. No chance.
Lads, we have 2 games this weekend, and then the following weekend after that, we've got 8 games in the championship. So the Tyrone Monaghan game is definitely on TV. I don't know if Derry Fermanagh is on TV yet. I haven't seen confirmation for that. But I'm sure it'll be on BBC at the weekend. Predictions? Are you going both? Are you going to do
I'm not doing predictions this week. Not after Rory McIlroy. That was the straw that broke the camel's back, backing that fella. Jesus Christ. And I should have known better than back in Cork as well.
Yeah, we're having a mare on predictions.
Let's just give our insight, and then we can record. We can record and edit this.
True. That's a good. That is a good idea.
Now you're talking.
Paddy,
we get everything right. Retrospective clairvoyance. Beautiful.
Myself and James are looking a little worse for wear. I've noticed it across the pod here. You're glowing, my friend.
Lads, the balcony, the doors are open. It's 25 degrees here down in Tenerife. Look, I said I'd give an hour and a half of my time to the pod.
Fair play.
My wife is texting me there going, where are you gone? So things I do for you, lads. A little bit of a tan. Go out and get sunburned to a crisp now. Yep. You
do that, Paddy. We will hold the fort down over here. Thanks for joining us this week, Paddy and James. Fair play. This is episode 13 of the Football Pod. It's brought to you with thanks to AIB, proud sponsor of the Senior Football Championship. We are, of course, in Killarney on Thursday, May 4th. We would love to see you there. It's a bank holiday the Monday beforehand. I may have misrepresented the state of the bank holidays this year last week on the pod. It's actually the Monday beforehand. But we'll just make another bank holiday out of it the following week.
Killarney in May is worth a week anyway.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
James, Paddy, enjoy your week.
I will.
Cheers, boys. Thanks, lads. Bye-bye.